Ready, set, hut, hut!
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 15 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth.
It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, April 18th edition, and jam-packed show today as we got news to talk about on the WVU football side and a lot of news to talk about on the WVU basketball side. So we're going to talk football here at the front half of the show, basketball at the back half. Here on the football side, we've got recruiting update to provide, as that's one of the more negative stories. Unfortunately, do have a couple negative pieces of news, but for the most part, it's pretty positive throughout the show, including a transfer commitment, the first for West Virginia in this transfer portal cycle, as they land an offensive lineman. We'll talk about him. And then I did get that list put together of transfers WVU has contacted in the portal on the football side, all the names that I could find anyway. So we'll go over that, talk a bit about each of those targets, some really exciting names involved there, including some guys that are coming in on visits over the weekend. So we'll talk about that on the football side. Then on the basketball side of things, another commitment West Virginia adds, a talented guy from St. Bonaventure that I think is going to really surprise some people with what he can provide here for this team depth-wise and be a good piece for Ross Hodges' first season. And then, of course, we got to update the portal targets on that side of things as well. So a lot to talk about here throughout this show, and we will get to all of that, both covering football and basketball, and we'll continue to keep you up to date on what's happening in the transfer portal as we're at that crazy time of transfer portal season where it's going on simultaneously in both sports there. But appreciate you guys tuning in here live, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. Those of you that are on Facebook or Twitch, encourage you to come over to the CRW YouTube channel so you can get our pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes. In addition to these live streams, just put out another WVU football roster update actually yesterday. You should check out there if you haven't already. Come over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, stay up to date on all things WVU football and WVU basketball. You guys that are in here live, any questions, comments, you got, throw them in the chat. I'll try and catch up on those throughout the stream as well, but got a lot to get to, so we're going to try and get everything covered before we get there. So let's do it with no further ado, guys. Let's get into this thing. Let's talk first on the football side. Let's get the negative news out of the way, right? So the negative news that came out yesterday is the recruiting portion of this update on the football side, and that is unfortunately jean-noel, the receiver West Virginia had committed out of Florida, has decided to withdraw his commitment, which that is, I guess, the positive and the negative side to when you're doing a good job recruiting so early already in the cycle, which West Virginia has, having multiple commits already here in early April. But also when that happens, you do run the risk of having decommits the further you get into the process. And that's what happens here. As you see this article from Mike Ostiover, our friends over there at WVSportsNow.com. He states that WVU football staff secured jean-noel in February. He seemed like the perfect fit for Rich Rod's offense. However, fast forward a few months, and jean-noel decided to withdraw his commitment, which he announced on social media, saying, "After prayers and talks with my family, I've decided to decommit from WVU and reopen my recruitment. This wasn't easy. I'm grateful for the love and support from the coaching staff. Much respect to the program. 5'10", 160-pound guy that was a speed specialist, but I'm sure that's something that this coaching staff will continue to attract in the recruiting cycle. They will get some more speedsters in here, and who knows where he will end up, Jafar Jean-Noel, but he may end up somewhere else. I think that, one of the things is the fact that Blaine Stewart was initially his lead recruiter, who, of course, is no longer on staff. That probably played a part in this as well. As you see, Mike mentioned that in the article. So we'll see where he ends up. But with that, let's update our recruiting tracker for this 2026 class. West Virginia's done a great job already getting commits in here early, but we will remove his name now from the commitment list here. So let's take off Jafar Jean-Noel, which still, though, leaves West Virginia with multiple prospects out of the state of Florida already. I'm here within these first, 6 commitments right now after losing Jafar Jean-Noel. 2 of them are from the state of Florida. Then you have tight end Sam Hamilton from Ohio, running back Jet Walker from Texas, quarterback Jaron Hughley being one of those from Florida, defensive back Emery Snyder from Oklahoma, defensive back Taj Powell from Ohio, and then most recently, linebacker Cameron Dwyer, who is out of the state of Florida. And we do have videos up on each one of these on the channel you can find. Just check out our CRW recruiting playlist if you want to know more about each one of these guys and see a couple plays of their highlights. They always share those in the recruitment update videos. But Jafar Jean-Noel out of the class, that's what you're left with right now in the 2026 class for WVU. So I wanted to update that there. And then, of course, now let's talk about the more positive side of things because, when we knew the transfer portal window was coming and we knew West Virginia was going to be making a lot of roster adjustments, as I've done my roster updates in the pre-recorded videos and in streams in the past, one thing everyone's continued to point out is, man, we need to get some offensive linemen. We need to definitely target offensive linemen. And I think the coaching staff took note of that as well, as you saw them go out and reach out to offensive linemen. And the first commitment that they get here in this transfer portal cycle is there up front on that offensive line. That being Michael Clay or Michael Clay. I'm going to go with Michael. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation yet, but let's pull up here his announcement on social media. And you guys can give him a follow there if you'd like. Show him some support there, which it is at MICKEL Clay 7. And there is the graphic that he shared, committing to the Mountaineers, transferring from the school North Alabama there. He's originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. And let's learn a little bit about him here with a transfer 101 from Keenan Cummings over on the Rivals site. And then we will talk about other targets that West Virginia is after on the football side, including some that are coming in on visits this upcoming weekend. So transfer 101 on Michael Clay here from Keenan Cummings, who does a great job covering these transfers and commitments over on the WVU Rivals site. Be sure to check him out. 6'5", 278. I think he's 300 now. That's what he's listed at in his bio. So that's what we're going to say he's up to now. Started his career at junior college, but has spent the past 3 seasons at North Alabama. So he's someone that gets that extra year because that JUCO ruling appeared in a total of 29 games. I think he played over 700 snaps this past season at North Alabama as a starter. All last season, starting 12 games at right tackle. 1 season of eligibility remaining, and becomes the latest transfer addition for West Virginia along the offensive line, where all these other ones here are on campus already. We've talked about them in the past, but now you'll have him and you'll have Will Reed coming in as transfers to join that offensive line, and we'll see if West Virginia adds more. Of course, Will Reed committed in the last transfer portal cycle, but was finishing up his degree at Princeton. Here is a little bit of the data on Clay. He played a total of 792 snaps last season, so I knew it was over 700, but that's nearly 800 snaps, which would make him one of the most experienced on the newly constructed West Virginia offensive line. He graded out at a 77 overall grade, according to PFF, and strong grades in run blocking at 74 and pass blocking at 73. Obviously, you want someone with a good run blocking grade, and I think that that he is super athletic. I believe he played wide receiver, was what I heard them say on Sportsline, in his early career when he first started playing football back in high school. And, 6'5", 278 now. So, he was probably 6'5", 240 at least at that point. So very athletic, which, that's something that you need in a Rich Rod offensive scheme, is the athletic offensive lineman that can move, both because of the tempo and also because, a lot of gap scheme stuff where they'll be pulling and countering, but mostly because of that tempo. And he seems like someone that can get up and down the field. Here does Michael Clay. Over the course of last year, he permitted only 3 sacks while blocking and allowed just 14 hurries, while posting a pass blocking efficiency number of 98.0. Over his career, the efficiency number is 97.8, and he has over 1,100 snaps to his credit. So good stuff there on Michael Clay. So let's pull up our transfer portal tracker, which in the past had only been to track the transfers out for a little bit here now. But now we finally get to add a name to the transfer in list, and then we can start to talk about some of the targets West Virginia is after as well, in addition to Michael Clay, who we have here now as the first transfer in, 6'5", 300-pounder from North Alabama. So he's the first one in, but how about some other guys West Virginia may be going after? Let's pull up some info on some of those guys. Then we'll pull up our transfer portal tracker where I have a full list with these guys here that I'm going to highlight, plus even more. So from the portal report, Tennessee transfer John Slaughter, who is a safety, a defensive back, has received interest from the following programs per his agency: Oklahoma State, Florida State, Memphis, Colorado, Purdue, Tulane, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Liberty, and of course, WVU. So he is going to be on our transfer contact list when we pull it up momentarily here for those on the football side. Other guys that we are after that I think are intriguing here. Let's pull up another tweet here. And this one is actually in reference to someone that's going to be visiting. I mean, I mentioned, we had multiple guys coming in on visits. I think that Bryant is one, the linebacker, which we'll talk about momentarily. And we mentioned him on the previous stream. But also coming in for a visit is North Carolina transfer receiver Christian Hamilton. Matt Zenitz of 247 putting this out on social media that he's set to visit WVU this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So maybe on campus now as we speak. Was a 4-star recruit back in 2023, had 7 catches last year. So someone with an extremely high ceiling, probably very highly rated coming out of high school. And, there's a power conference transfer that I know people always clamor for those. There's one that's visiting this weekend. So we have an update on him. And then I know there was at least one more that I wanted to pull up here, and then we'll pull up the full contact list because there was another one. Yeah, here it is. This one I'm actually really excited about the potential here because when we saw, the departures at the running back position, and we heard Rich Rod mention they may like to add one more guy with some speed there. Well, how about a former 5-star recruit with 1 year of eligibility remaining, already hearing from Nebraska, Florida State, South Alabama, Southern Miss, and WVU? And that is John Emery Jr., a running back from LSU. So if West Virginia adds a running back, that would be a really good one to pick up. So those are a few names you're going to see here on the transfer contact list, which let's pull it up. These are all the football portal prospects that I've seen West Virginia reach out to at this point. Of course, one of those being Michael Clay, who's now in here and has committed to the Mountaineers. So here are the others. We just highlighted these 3 here: John Slaughter, the defensive back from Tennessee; Christian Hamilton, the wide receiver from UNC; and John Emery Jr., the running back from LSU. Additionally, West Virginia has offered a scholarship to defensive lineman Eddie Kelly out of Missouri. Linebacker Gary Bryant's one we talked about on the previous stream. He's on a visit this weekend, I believe, as well. He's an All-American at that level there at South Dakota, so it would be a big pickup. He's highly sought after in the portal. West Virginia is also after linebacker Shea Taylor from Ohio, who we've talked about in the past, and linebacker Jason Hewlett from Michigan, who we talked about on the previous stream. I think it was about a week ago, before the portal opened, we knew West Virginia was targeting Cam Rice out of Ohio on the defensive lineman. He's someone whose recruitment has really picked up. He's highly sought after in the portal. West Virginia, I think, has a good chance because of his previous history with WVU, starting his career here, then playing at West Virginia Wesleyan. And, of course, his grandmother, Lori Rice, has a long time been a member of the support staff there on the football side. So maybe that gives us a leg up in competition for his services. But he's someone that we've offered a scholarship to and are pursuing there. And then here, multiple wide receivers. In the past, we've talked about Moody Rubin. We talked about Cam Abshire, the Division II transfer West Virginia had been after early in the process. But since then, West Virginia has offered scholarships to Justin Smith-Brown, a wide receiver out of South Carolina State, and Trayshawn Hurry, a wide receiver out of San Jose State. So I think when you look at this list, kind of as expected, running back maybe not as much expected, but we knew the numbers were light there. They could potentially add one running back, but we definitely knew they were going to go after offensive linemen. We've already seen a commit there. They were going to go after defensive linemen. You see a couple already on the target list. They were going to go after wide receivers. We knew that for a fact. You see 5 of those on the list already, and they were going to go after linebackers, and you see multiple of those on the list. And then, of course, they may add another defensive back or two. That's why they're targeting Slaughter. So those are kind of the positions to continue to watch here in the portal. And I also think tight end will definitely be something that's added. If you saw in our last roster update, West Virginia, I think, only has 3 tight ends currently remaining on the roster, with 2 of those being scholarship guys. So I think tight end will be something you'll see picked up through here in this portal window. This list is going to continue to expand. As it does, I'll continue to update it here as players commit elsewhere, or move them from the list, or of course add them to our transfer in list, hopefully, like we were able to do with Michael Clay here on the offensive line. But I think in short order, we'll start seeing more commits on the football side. No, we got guys in on visits this weekend, so maybe that's a positive sign to potentially having some more transfers in, some more transfer commits on the football side to talk about there as far as that's concerned. I think that's all I had here on the football side. Let me double check on that really quickly, and then I will catch up on some of your all's comments before we talk a little bit of basketball as well on the back half of the show here. We got transfer updates galore there as well, including a commit for the hoop side and positive updates on future portal prospects that we've talked about in the past, including Trace and Eagle staff, one that we're really hoping to land here. So take a swig of my coffee, then I'll catch up on some of your all's comments, and then we will talk basketball here on the back half of the show. All right. Hey, what's going on, Kenny? Good to see you in here. Kenny says we've been hitting home runs in coach and players for football and basketball, plus baseball and women's basketball. Yeah, I think Ren Baker's hit home runs in the hires for sure. Hopefully the wins come in football and basketball like they have in women's basketball, and definitely like they have in baseball. How about that? Securing that win last night, 3-2, closing it out, and was that 12 in a row now? I think 32-4 for the WVU baseball team. Hats off to them. Hope they keep it going as they wrap up that series with Cincinnati this weekend. Got to shout out the WVU baseball team. They deserve it. Chad Moore, appreciate you as well, says looking forward to more good news today. As am I, man. Fingers crossed we're going to get some really good news on one of the best players in the portal on the basketball side, guys. I think that's going to come out in the next 24 to 48 hours, and hopefully it's for the good guys, right? We'll see what happens, but more on that here momentarily. But looking forward to more good news, hopefully here in the near future, whether it's football or basketball commits. We're going to continue to get plenty of each, I think. Channel member Trey Edwards, always appreciate you, man. This has got an interview for an important program I'm trying to get into this fall. This is a great way to start off my day. Hey, appreciate the kind words, man, and I hope that interview goes great. I'm sure you're going to kill it, Trey. No doubt in my mind, man. You're going to do a great job there and ace that interview. Let's see here. Devil Dog 44 said in a hospital bed and still watching Mountaineer podcast. I think I need an intervention. Let's go. Hey, let's go, Devil Dog 44. I hate that you're in a hospital bed though, man, but I hope that you, whatever's going on with you, you get healed up, get feeling better, get out of that hospital bed, but continue to enjoy the Mountaineer podcast. I'd probably be doing the same if I was in that situation, man. I can't ever get enough of them either. So, good Mountaineer fan there, Devil Dog 44. Hope you get feeling better. Jimmy Rollins, what's up, JR? Let's go Mountaineers indeed. Let's go Mountaineers indeed. David Mountaineer with Kenny says Chance Moore, excuse me. Yep, the great transition, Kenny. We're about to dive into the basketball side here momentarily. Hey, Raven, good to see you tune in and chime in as well. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel in Morgantown. I do too. They always say, what is it? The night is darkest just before the dawn. And I think things are really brightening up right now for athletics at WVU for sure. Kenny says we have 7 home runs on the basketball team. I do really love the way this class is shaping up here for the transfer side on the basketball team. We'll show the full class here momentarily. Eric Flower says, good thing I gave up on cable and only watch YouTube. I turned all of it off after March Madness, turn it back on for WVU's first game. That's smart. I might need to start doing that after March Madness, just canceling my YouTube TV subscription until the fall for football, because that's really all I watch it for is basketball and football. So, yeah. That's not a bad idea, Eric. I understand that. And YouTube's what I'm on most of the time as well, too. So, Michael Sims says, dude's a tank. Indeed. I'm guessing you're referencing Michael Clay. Yeah, seems like a really good one. We needed offensive line depth. Glad to pick it up. And we'll see how he ends up factoring in there. Someone with a ton of experience as well. Total Destruction said, do you think Moore comes off the bench if we land Eagles staff? I do think that Moore is going to come off the bench on this squad, especially if we land Eagles staff. But even if we don't, I still think that he might. But he's a really good player to bring off your bench. So since we're getting some basketball questions and getting some talk about it, let's get to the basketball side of the updates. Then I'll continue to catch up on some of your all's comments here. But continue to throw them in there, guys. Appreciate you guys that are tuned in here live, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. If you're on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the YouTube side of things and subscribe here to gain access to the additional content. And those of you that are watching on YouTube, whether playback or the live stream, just take a second, hit the thumbs up button, give us a like on this video, help us out with that crazy YouTube algorithm so this can find more Mountaineer fans like yourself. With no further ado, let's talk about the basketball updates here. Let's lead off with the more negative side, I guess, but it does answer a question that we've all been curious about the answer to for quite some time now, and that's the status of Jaden Stone. You know, he suffered that scary injury last year, never got a chance to play, but he was still listed on the university's official roster. There'd really been no word on what was going on with him. We had heard rumors that he wasn't even with the team for the final couple of weeks of the season, but now seems like finally get official confirmation that he is indeed entering the transfer portal here on 3, putting this out yesterday. West Virginia guard Jaden Stone enters the NCAA transfer portal. Puts one of the top scorers in the country on the open market, had a breakout season at Detroit Mercy, which a lot of people don't know. He was a 20 plus point per game scorer that West Virginia was going to have on the roster, but did not get to play because of an injury and redshirted. So he's hitting the portal now. So we can add him to our transfer out list on the basketball side here. Let's go ahead and pull up our transfer portal tracker here for basketball, where we'll be looking at this transfer out list. And then we have another transfer in to add, and then we'll do an update here on prospects as well. So let's pull this up here. And as you can see, Jaden Stone now joins, of course, Tucker DeVries, Jonathan Powell, KJ Tenier, Amani Hansberry, Sincere Harrison, Offrey Neve on the transfer out list. But the transfer in list, luckily, continues to grow. And we got to talk a bit about Chance Moore now, the most recent addition, 6'6", 210 out of St. Bonaventure. Let's pull up a little bit of his numbers here, and then we'll pull up the transfer 101 from Keenan over at Rivals to talk a little bit more further about his game. But right off the bat, one thing that jumps out to me is he's got the great length and size, much like many of the other wing players we've added, whether you talk Brennan Lorient, whether you talk Jackson Fields, DJ Thomas, or now Chance Moore. And I think he's, a guard at 6'6", so that's that great length. That's what we wanted to add alongside Honor Huff, was good length at the other wing positions. But he is a great rebounder for a guard at 6'6" there. He's done a great job of that throughout his career. You see it in his numbers last season, 13 points, nearly 7 rebounds at the guard spot, 46% from the field. Not the greatest three-point shooter. That's not really the way that he gets his points. He's good off the pick and roll, which will be something that, of course, Ross Hodge utilizes. We talk about that a lot. He's good attacking the rim, getting inside, good mid-range game, really good at attacking the basket and finishing, can score off second chance opportunities as well, as you see evidenced by the good rebounding numbers. I think that this guy is more of a one of those hustler players, one of those glue guys. He's going to be a really good defender. He can guard multiple positions for you, and he's going to be a guy that crashes the glass both on the offensive and defensive ends, which is something we're going to need here in this scheme as well. So I do like that aspect of his game. Average nearly 1 block per game and 1 steal per game to go along with the numbers. But I think what is funny is some Mountaineer fans may not know, or if you do know, this may jog your memory here. He's actually already played in Morgantown. 2 years ago, I believe this was the first game of the Josh Eilert interim season, the season opener there. West Virginia ended up winning 67-59, but the leading scorer in that game back in November of 2023, none other than Chance Moore, funny enough. So if we pull up the box score here and we check it out for Missouri State, he had 24 points, 8 rebounds. So there he was even back then 2 years ago, great rebounding numbers as a guard. 2 blocks and 1 steal. So that shows you right there he can play against this level of competition, because that was 2 seasons ago, back when he was at Missouri State before he transferred over to St. Bonaventure this past year and was their second leading scorer. So Chance Moore, now going to be a Mountaineer, but having already played in Morgantown before. Just a funny tidbit to note there. But let's pull up the transfer 101, talk a little bit further about his game here, courtesy of Keenan Cummings over at the WVU Rivals site. So on Chance Moore, the 6'6", 210-pounder, entered the portal back on March 19th, took an official visit to Morgantown about a month later on April 17th, which led to his commitment that same day. The Georgia native spent last season with St. Bonaventure, where he, of course, averaged 13 points, nearly 7 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal per game, starting in all but 1 game last season. And he's started his career as a power conference player, actually, as well, at Arkansas. Then went to Missouri State, where we just talked about him a little bit there. And then, of course, ended up at St. Bonaventure this past season. 6th edition for West Virginia. let's talk a little bit about fitting the program. Moore has the length and athleticism to put the ball on the floor and put pressure on the rim. Total of 56% on his field goal of his field goal attempts are at the rim, and he's a versatile option that can draw defenders with his ability to get to the basket. So, as I said there, that's kind of his best feature, in my opinion, on the offensive end, and his ability to get downhill and get to the rim, which also leads to him drawing fouls and becoming a factor, somebody who can create problems for defenses with that ability. And he's an active defender with his length, both in the passing lane with steals and with blocks for his position. A couple blocks when he was in Morgantown a couple of years ago, even playing for Missouri State. So, he's kind of an atypical guard in that way. He can block shots. He can get rebounds because he has great size and length, that he's really going to be a lot stronger than his matchup, particularly, especially if he lines up at the 2. I think you'll see him with the 3 a lot. But when he's at that 2 spot, he's really going to be a mismatch at times. Moore brings a nice blend of skills that should only further strengthen the roster that Hodge has put in place with his length and athleticism, as well as his defensive versatility there. So good stuff again from Keenan Cummings. So we add Chance Moore in, which I think, as someone stated previously, I think he'll be, someone that comes off the bench, a key reserve, if you will, because I think you're going to have Honor Huff potentially starting as your 2 guard. I think if you get Eagle Staff, he could start as your 3-man, Lorian at the 4, Obioha at the 5. Starting point guard could be Jasper Floyd, but I'm waiting to see if West Virginia adds another potential point guard there. And Jasper Floyd could be a reserve as well. We'll see if he ends up starting or not. I could see it go either way on that. But then I think you will have Chance Moore there to, come in for Honor Huff, and gives you a completely different look at your 2 spot. If you start Honor Huff and have Moore as the reserve, you go from a 5'10" guy to a 6'6" guy, which that can create matchup problems in and of itself there. And then I also think he could be a reserve there at the 3 spot behind potentially Eagle Staff if West Virginia was to land him. So do like the pickup of Chance Moore. Think he does a lot of things that you need. He's kind of one of those intangible players. Like I said, he's going to probably take charges. He's going to get steals. He's going to block shots. He's going to grab rebounds. And then on offense, he's going to be a guy that can get downhill and get to the rim when you got an opponent in foul trouble and you want to continue to get to the line. He's the guy that can help you do that as well. So do like the addition of Chance Moore. But let's talk about West Virginia's status with some of these other transfer targets. Let's talk about the one you guys want to hear about first, and that is, of course, Trayson Eaglestaff, which last stream we talked about. Jeff Goodman shared his clip talking about West Virginia being the favorite. We shared the transfer portal Jesus prediction, which had Trayson Eaglestaff predicted to go to West Virginia. How about transfer and recruiting news on social media? Joe Knows News is the handle there, and he is also predicting Trayson Eaglestaff to West Virginia. And here is a little bit of proof of his record on some of these predictions throughout the portal, including one he just got right for West Virginia. He also just got another one correct that I saw after this. I think his record's up to 68-4 now. But once he predicted Chance Moore to West Virginia, that ended up happening later that day, and he brought his prediction record to 66-4. And that's someone else that's predicting Trayson Eaglestaff to WVU. So fingers crossed we get good news on that today or tomorrow. Speaking of Chance Moore, before we talk further on these portal prospects, I did have a nice tweet here pulled up from Brad Howell talking about some good numbers on Moore. Some numbers on him: top 17 percentage of players nationally in block percentage, according to Kim Palm, which I talk about him just being a bit different, in a guard or a wing player as far as getting blocks and getting rebounds. Top 15 percentage nationally in getting the free throw line, and projected 92nd percentile defensive grade. So certainly going to fit in well in Ross Hodge's defensive scheme. But we do have another name that we're going to add to the target list here that we need to talk about, and that is another guard. This one from UNC Asheville, Jordan Marsh. Joe Tipton putting this one out on social media. Per his agents, he has been in contact with Baylor, Oregon State, UCF Temple, Fresno State, UC Santa Barbara, New Mexico State, and of course, WVU. So some numbers on Jordan Marsh here, and then we will update the portal contacts on the basketball side. Got some guys that have committed elsewhere, and then we'll talk about guys that are on commitment watch here in Morgantown. But Jordan Marsh, 5'10", 165 from Charlotte, nearly a 19-point per game scorer. So that's why you see a lot of people, reaching out to him. This is a guy that can really score the basketball, nearly top 50 in the country in scoring. And what's crazy is the 4 rebounds per game, despite the 5'10" size. Definitely shows that this is a scrappy guy that's not afraid to get in there and mix it up. 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Certainly was a do-it-all man there at UNC Asheville. And I think what always impresses me is when you got a guy with a high field goal percentage despite a high usage rate, which is what you have here with Jordan Marsh at 45% field goal percentage, averaging 19 points per game. You look at his extended numbers, decent from the 3-point line, near 31%. Good free throw shooter at 78%. The 4 assists to 2 turnovers is great. You love the 2-to-1 ratio there. The 2 steals per game would be awesome as well. Seems like a really good defensive player, a guy that can get it done on both ends, which we know is a requirement for Coach Hodge. So I really am impressed by those numbers here with Jordan Marsh, especially the jump from last year to this year, going from 6 points per game to nearly 19 points per game, and jumped up, percentage numbers in each category as well. So I think that he's a guy that really is probably going to have a high ceiling. He's a guy that you would get with multiple years remaining. So, let's keep an eye on him. But we have added him to our transfer target list. So let's talk about the guys West Virginia has reached out to and is going after here on the basketball side of the portal. We've been continuing to try and update this. I did go through and kind of do a purge here of guys that committed elsewhere and stuff. And of course, Chance Moore committing WVU. All the names in blue here are WVU commits. The names in red have committed elsewhere. Jordan Marsh, the most recent addition to the list. And of course, Trayson Eaglestaff that we talked about previously is the one that we have our fingers crossed for, maybe both our fingers on both hands and our toes as well, because how important of an addition that would be. One of the very best portal players in the country, one of the best scorers in all of college basketball. 40-point game last year, a 50-point game last year. The guy is unbelievable, and West Virginia has been reported to be the favorite. Let's hope that is still the case, and we can get good news on that today or tomorrow. So we are on commitment watch for Trayson Eaglestaff. But let's talk about some of the guys that committed elsewhere. West Virginia was after Isaiah Barnes has committed to Valparaiso. Duke Brennan committed to Villanova. Jermichael Stillwell and Themis Fulks, both staying in the Big 12, but they went to UCF, and actually both those guys played together in Milwaukee, now went to UCF together. Tayton Connerway was one we were keeping an eye on because where West Virginia landed. Jackson Fields from Troy. We thought that may increase our chances for Connerway, but unfortunately he ends up at the worst possible landing spot of Indiana. I hate that for him to end up with the sleaze there, but he's a talented player. Hopefully he has a good turnout despite that. Then I think that's the only other we only had was Makai Mason committed to Wake Forest. And then another one that we had on commitment watch previously because he did visit was Wes Ennis, but he ends up at South Florida with Brian Hodgson there committing to him. So those are guys kind of out of the mix. So West Virginia still, going after at this point some guys they've contacted that remain uncommitted. Guard Terrence Ginyard from UT Martin, forward Garrick Norman from Michigan State, guard Darren McHenry from Western Kentucky, Devin Hayde from Central Connecticut, Grant Newell from North Texas, Ante Brezovich from College of Charleston, talented player but needs a waiver for an extra year of eligibility, Kamani Hamilton from High Point, Jacob Darr from Rice, Tywell Ward from LSU, but I think I saw him predicted to land elsewhere as well, so I would kind of scratch him off. I'm not going to turn him red yet on the list, but I think that he's kind of out of the mix for him. Parsifala is one that we have had on commitment watch because he has had a Zoom meeting with WVU. We're still keeping our eyes on that one. Still in the mix for Jamel Jones from Cal State Bakerfield, Seydou Traore from Iowa, Marcus Millender from UTSA, Jacoby Coles from Grand Canyon, Miles Che from UC Irvine, Johan Traore from SMU, Adam Miller from Arizona State. So on commitment watch right now, I would have Trayson Eaglestaff from North Dakota and Parsifala from Oregon State as the main two I've got on commitment watch right now for the Mountaineers. We'll see if, any of these other guys get in on visits, get Zoom calls or anything. Maybe we'll put them on commitment watch and a further update, and I'm sure this list will continue to grow. But what we're really hoping for is positive news right here on Trayson Eaglestaff in the next 24 to 48 hours. As like I said, we are on commitment watch. Let's hope we can land one of the best players in the portal, as we already have a really good portal class. And if you compare him into that starting lineup with Huff, Lorient, Obi Oha, man, you're really cooking with gas then with the best shooter in the portal that you landed in Honor Huff, and then probably the best scorer, in my opinion, in Trayson Eaglestaff, who's an absolute stud. So we'll keep our eyes on that one. For now, 6 names on the transfer in list, 1 incoming freshman, and there's an update on the targets, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that as West Virginia builds this roster for the upcoming season. But that's what I had, guys. The football portal updates with the commit on that side, and then finally got a contact list together that I'll continue to expand like I have here on the basketball side in live streams. And then, of course, same goes for the basketball side, a commit and an update on potential targets there. But let's get to some of your all's comments, and then we will get ready to wrap this one up. Total Destruction said all the money they paid Huff, I think he starts. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Went down the wrong way there and took a swig of that coffee. But I definitely think that Huff is a starter for sure. I think Huff and Lorient are starters for sure. I would say 90% sure. Same goes for Obioha. So, I think you're looking to round out that starting lineup now with your other two wing players to join Huff. Hopefully one's Eagle staff. Will the other one be Jasper Floyd that you've already picked up, or could it be one of these other guys we're going after in the portal there that we just talked about in the contact list? I think that's up for debate, but certainly I agree with you. Huff is definitely starting for sure. Let's see. Raven said, patiently waiting for Ross to announce his staff. Yeah, I know. They must be just trying to clear the red tape on that because, we already know several of these names because we've heard about them recruiting these guys. The Phil Forte, who continues to do an amazing job. Got Honor Huff. If we land Eagle staff, I've heard he's been running point on that one as well. So, Phil Forte doing a great job. We know about Jace Hurl as well. And then there's two other ones that name escaped me right now. Sean something, and then can't remember the other name. So we know like 4 staff members already. They just haven't been officially announced. So hopefully those are coming really soon here in the near future, Raven. I'm anxious to have those out and be able to share the press releases with you guys on a future live stream. Are there any 2025 in-state football recruits we are after? Good question, Doug. I'm not sure. Not 2025. I'm sure you're talking about the upcoming class 2026 on the football side there. But I would have to look at that further to see. I'm sure that there's at least a couple of West Virginia prospects that we've offered scholarships to, but at this point, no commits from any in-state prospects. There is, still early in phase there on the football side. Was it 7 commits? Now it's 7. We'll see what happened. Now it's 6, excuse me. But we'll see what happens there moving forward. Appreciate the question, Doug. They're in Myrtle Beach. Raven said, we're finally getting more than one big for down low. I know. Isn't it great to see all the length that's on this team? Definitely already better in size. And with Obioha at 280, we don't have to worry about anyone physically dominating us in the post. This happened a couple of times last season there in the paint. So got Obioha. Would love to get someone like Parsifala, who I know isn't a defensive force. He's known for more of his offensive game, but at least at 250, 260, whatever he is, I can't remember right off, he'd be able to hold his own and they're against bigger guys as well. Big Red for WVU said, good to know Stone status. It's been 200 days of who knows anything. Exactly. I hate that he's transferring because he is, a guy that was a dynamic scorer in the past, but at least it's not just a giant question mark anymore. At least we have some type of update on him finally, and hope, wish him well for the future for sure. Kenny said, I believe this is the year of the Mountaineers. Hey, I like that, Kenny. Hopefully it is. I'm super excited, man. Can't remember the last time we had a new coach in both sports in the same season. It's going to be fun to watch, the initial years of both Coach Hodge and, Rich Rod's 2.0, first year here as well. I'm really excited about both and the way things are shaping up for both thus far. Raven said, is there anyone in the portal who compares to Javon Small? Not really. Eagle staff, I think, what I said about Eagle staff, and I'll repeat it here in case people didn't get a chance to watch that stream when I talked about him. I think that, of course, you exclude Tucker DeVries from this conversation because he was super highly rated in the portal, but you didn't really have to recruit him. He just came because, obviously Coach DeSleaze is his dad, right? So you didn't really have to recruit him. I think if you land Trace and Eagle staff, he is the best player you've ever landed out of the portal in this era at WVU. I think that's how good he is. He's like a program changing type of player, elite scorer. We've definitely never landed a portal player that I know of that scored 40 in a game, scored 50 plus in a game. So Eagle staff definitely would be one that I think is comparable as far as being able to create his own shot at will, score on anyone with the 6'6" frame. He's a mismatch in that aspect. Honor Huff, you could say, is comparable as far as being able to score. But the thing with Honor Huff is he is 5'10", so, they put a longer defender on him, maybe harder for him to get his own shot off. He's shown the ability to do that in the past with great handles and great step back moves and a really quick release. We'll see if he's still able to do it in the Big 12. I think he will be able to, but I also think there's a reason they're trying to get him off the ball and let him, run off screens, elevator screens, spot him up and let him shoot a lot of threes there for Honor Huff. So Honor Huff may be comparable in the way he can score it, but Eagle staff, I think, is probably the most comparable because he, I think, will be your go-to guy late game situations, hit a lot of clutch shots there at North Dakota if West Virginia lands him. Like I said, still, an if there, but that'd probably be the closest thing I would say as far as what guys West Virginia is targeting anyway. And, on paper, I've said this before as well, this portal class is better than last year's on paper because on paper last year, DeVries was super highly rated. Javon Small was, highly regarded, but not, on paper, no one thought he was going to be as good as he was. They never thought he was going to be one of the best players in college basketball. So he was a bit of a surprise in that aspect where some of the guys you're bringing in this time are more highly rated. Chance Moore that we just talked about, he's a 4-star transfer grade on 247, and he's a guy that you're probably going to be bringing off the bench here at WVU, which just shows how good of a job they're doing in the portal this time around and doing it in a lot quicker fashion. Seemed like it was a really slow, kind of drawn out process last year versus how quickly it's going this year. As Kenny says, Ross Hodge is building us to win now, for sure. Talking about Jordan Marsh, Kenny says he has as his number 1 from what I hear. That would be awesome. That would be awesome to add him in the mix. Another guy that scored almost 20 points per game. Those are rare in the portal, guys, and he's a dynamic scorer with really good numbers for someone his size, especially when you look at the rebounding numbers and things like that. So that's good news. Hopefully he does, Kenny. Raven, I'm loving Ross Hodge so far as well. So am I, for sure. Trey Edwards says Braden Hawthorne visiting Virginia Tech today. Not good in my eyes. He may commit because of Frazier and Hernandez. Yeah, which Nelson Hernandez, now the GM at VT there, which we know Chester Frazier was previously, had already gone to VT. Hawthorne and Frazier do have a connection, so it is something we have to keep an eye on. I think it'll be VT, Kentucky, or WVU for Braden Hawthorne. He's visited all 3. We'll see which place he ends up making his decision at. If we get past today without him committing while on that visit, that really, makes me feel a little bit better, Trey, but I'm a little bit worried about it also. I really want to land Braden Hawthorne. We'll see what happens. Total Destruction says, what up, backup center? I don't know if you saw in that update, but Parsafala, the other one that we have on commitment watch from Oregon State, I think would fill that role potentially of backup center. There's some other guys that we're going after there as well, but I think he's the one that we've had the Zoom call with and I'm keeping an eye on for the time being. A kind of more offensive-centric player in the post, but has great size, would be able to, be that backup to OBO high and play those reserve minutes and hold his own in the post for sure. Anthony Slater said, Pat McAfee talked about Scotty Fox on a show yesterday. AJ Hawk said he knew of him too about 23 minutes into the show. Hey, that's awesome to hear, Anthony Slater. We've been singing his praises throughout the spring as well here on the CRW because we've been hearing nothing but good things as well from people that we know also. So I think he's someone that they think has a ton of potential, and hopefully West Virginia is able to keep him around for the future because he could be a future star there at the quarterback position. But I'll have to check that out. Thanks for letting me know, Anthony Slater. Appreciate that for sure. W. Mountaineer with Kenny says we have to be patient there. I believe we still have him because he loves West Virginia. He knows how we feel about Virginia Tech. Yeah, it's just how much, which weighs more to him, his love for West Virginia or his relationship with Chester Frazier. I guess that will end up kind of being the deciding factor for him if Kentucky doesn't lure him away with their money and prestige. But I think that it's more likely that it's for Hawthorne it's either WV or VT, but I could be surprised there. We'll see what happens though, but fingers crossed on Braden Hawthorne as well, the other freshman that could potentially join out of high school. I think if he doesn't, then it'll probably be only DJ Thomas coming out of the high school ranks as far as that is concerned, but we could potentially add Braden Hawthorne. Other than that, it's probably going to be all transfers. That's why you see us targeting so many, already having a good class in the fold, and we'll continue to give updates there as well. Chris Gerald said, did you see PJ Haggerty enter the portal? Guard from Memphis, average double digits, scoring in a couple steals per game. Any interest? At this point, no. I think, if we missed out on Eagle Staff, that would be someone we'd try and get involved with. But I think if we land Eagle Staff, we couldn't potentially land Haggerty as well. But landing Honor Huff and Eagle Staff is going to be super huge if we can land Eagle Staff, which I'm hoping to have good news on that here in the near future. But yeah, PJ Haggerty entering the portal from Memphis was huge news yesterday. Instantly became one of the top rated guys, if not the top rated guy in the portal. So he's right up there. Would love to see West Virginia go after him if things don't pan out with the Eagle Staff. But, I would honestly prefer Eagle Staff to the two. That's just me because I've probably gotten to know Eagle staff a little bit more than I have Haggerty, but I was impressed with Haggerty when I saw him last year. But no interest at this time, Chris Gerald, but he's going to be someone that's highly sought after for sure. But as West Virginia does continue to have players that they're interested in, we'll continue to update our contact list here, both on the basketball side and keep you up to date on portal targets there, and on the football side, so we can keep you up to date with players West Virginia is going after on the football side of things now that the portal is in full swing for both sports. We'll continue to bring you guys live streams to talk about these portal updates in the near future. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one. Jam-packed show covering both sports. Had a lot to get to, and appreciate all the great interaction throughout. If you did watch this here on YouTube, whether live or on the playback, before you head out, just take a quick second, hit that thumbs up button, help us out with that crazy YouTube algorithm. And those of you that watched on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel, subscribe here so you can get more access to the additional content besides these live streams, and you can stay up to date on the roster for both WVU basketball and WVU football as they form before the first year for Coach Ross Hodge and the first year in the Rich Rod 2.0 era as well. Those of you that are watching after the fact, throw your thoughts in the comments. If you didn't get to chat with us live, always appreciate those interactions here as well as we continue to try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, I'll chat with you guys again soon. Hope you guys have a great Friday. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.